Hi, everyone. It's Kate Byars, founder of Corporate Women Unleashed, and I am excited to bring to you an interview today with Lindsey. She is one of the graduates from our program. She's the vice president of marketing sales at a large global company, and she's got a really interesting story and a background. And she was incredible in the program. She was very coachable, very dedicated, very resourceful to using all the tools and the mentoring and the coaching that we did. So I'm excited for her to share her story today. So Lindsey, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, and thank you for doing this. So, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Like, what is it that you do? And, I guess since we're talking about work-life balance, you're married, kids, and just a little general overview to get to know you.
Sure. So, professionally, I am a VP of marketing and sales for a global pharmaceutical company. I've spent my whole career in related industries, I would say, and mostly in commercial functions. I am married. I have three small children who are 6, 3.5, and 10 months. I have a lot of interests, although I don't have a lot of time for those interests, but this program has helped me maybe find a little bit more time to do those things. But yeah, I love spending time with my family, and it was one of the main drivers for me doing this coaching program.
Awesome. Yeah, you're a busy mom. 3 littles under the age of 6. I think we can all relate to how busy you are. Plus, you have a very demanding job. So, fantastic. Tell us a little bit then, Lindsey. When you and I first started talking, I think it was back in August, you had contacted me, and some of the terms you were using to me is like, I'm at a bit of a crossroads or feeling like a bit of a blind spot. But what was going on for you that was you bringing you to a point where you were sort of questioning, like, what's the next move for me career-wise, especially now that I am a mom with 3 kids under the age of 6? Like, what was kind of motivating you to, or challenging you at that point?
Yeah, I kind of come to a place in my career, like over the last year, I'd say, where it really kind of hit me that up until that point, I always saw myself performing the next job. So like the next level. And it sort of hit me that was like, gosh, I don't think I want my boss's job. And I felt like that was like running into a brick wall a little bit. Like I didn't really know how to process that. Like somehow that was inherently a bad thing.
Right. Right.
So I was sort of going through this process of exploring, well, maybe that's not really a bad thing. It's just different than how I've always felt or operated. It always seemed a little bit easier, or maybe the momentum just sort of swept me along more easily, that like, hey, I'm moving, I'm changing jobs, I'm getting the next thing, I want the next promotion, I want, and it was maybe a little bit more stepwise and didn't threaten my sort of work-life balance quite as much as now, stopping and thinking about, not that it was being offered to me, but sort of thinking about like, gosh, well, what's sort of next for me after being in this role for 4 years? I think I was starting to get a little bit of an itch and naturally thinking, well, would I even know what's next for me? In the past, it's been very linear, like, well, it's the next job title, basically.
Right.
In this case, like, well, there's one person running our business and I don't really particularly have an interest to do that. So what would that be for me?
Got it.
So yeah, got me thinking, and struggling a little, like challenging, I think the way I've sort of managed my career in the past 15 years.
Yeah. And I know one of the things you and I talked about, because you moved up very quickly in your career, right? So you went in 15 years to a position of leadership and in an executive position. And I did the same. And I think when that happens, it can also leave you thinking, am I well-rounded enough for the next step? And did I miss something? Like, I've come so fast on this trajectory that's been up, up, up. What did I miss something? Should I be doing something else? Should I try to be more well-rounded? Should I go left? Should I go right? And I know you were sharing with me that same type of thing. Is that, am I accurate in what I'm saying, or do you relate to that?
Yeah, I think that was definitely a part of it, because I think that also tripped me up a little bit too, where I felt this like lack of confidence, which was very abnormal feeling to me. Again, in the past, it was sort of like, oh, absolutely. Like, I'm an associate director, like I should be a director. Here are the reasons why. And I've never been afraid to ask for a promotion because I always felt like I had a really clear case for it. And again, not that I was looking for a promotion, but I was sort of left thinking like, well, what would my next move be? if it's not, it's maybe not as obvious as just like the next job up the ladder. Okay, so what am I really good at? And then I started a little bit in this downward thought spiral of, okay, what am I good at? Well, I'm really good at managing my boss. I'm really good at information management. I'm really good at like pulling all these pieces together, but what am I really an expert at? You know, the jobs that I've had and the moves that I've made have required me to know maybe a medium amount about a lot of things.
Sure.
But to your point, have I spent many, many years becoming a technical expert on certain things? Maybe a few things, but other things, not really. So I sort of had this moment where I thought, gosh, I guess I'm really successful, but like, what is my core competency that I would, sell to somebody? So it was the first time where I felt like, I don't know. I can't believe I'm doubting myself when I've seemingly been so successful, but I'm doubting like, what is the success actually rooted in?
Yep. Yeah. No, and I think that's really common. And one of the things that happens as well as we move up the ladder and we take on more and more responsibility is then, maybe, for example, myself was marketing, right? So I felt very comfortable in marketing, and you and I had this conversation at some point in the program too. And then all of a sudden someone says, oh, well, you're great at, being the VP of marketing. Well, why don't you take on the VP of sales? And now we're going to give you sales. And now we're going to give you public relations. And now all of a sudden you're leading teams that you've never even worked in that capacity before. And you're like, how do I lead? And there's just this sort of sense of like, I really have to reprogram what my value is in this equation, because I don't know everything there is to know about whatever, like in my case, PR. I don't know everything there is to know about sales, but now I have to lead this team. So I think that could become an area of doubt, especially for women too, because we tend to feel very comfortable if we've done it before, then there's that confidence level. But if we haven't done it, well, where's my footing? That type of thing, right?
Yeah, that was definitely a reality for me. So about 18 months ago, maybe a little bit more than that, almost 2 years ago, I was also given responsibility for the sales team as well. And it was exactly that, like we've talked about, that I have worked with sales for a long time, my whole career, but I've never actually carried a bag, as they'd say, right? So I've never actually been on the sales team. So that was harder for me because I felt like I knew how to add value on the marketing side. I didn't even have to think about it, how to add value.
Right.
But on the sales side, I really had to think about and I think that's where a little bit of my doubt came in too, which was, well, how do I add value? How do I not just seem like another layer of management that, she, hasn't earned her stripes. And so I think part of it certainly was the self-imposed paranoia. But working really hard to figure out, how do I add value and feel good about what I am adding? And to your point, I did try to look around me too at other people who had taken on, they'd taken on managing teams that maybe they hadn't been a part of themselves. And I tried to think about, well, how would my boss do this? He's certainly managing functions that he's never been a part of himself either. And doesn't seem to bother him. Maybe it does, but it doesn't seem to bother him. So trying to channel that a little bit more. I hate to say like fake it till you make it, but it does take a certain amount of just faith and confidence to just it's like a day at a time, figure it out.
Yep. Okay. So cool. Let's talk about that, because that's a big piece of the program that you're in, the coaching program. But what, looking back over that period of time, like what were some of the things that you feel like you accomplished, or some goalposts or something that you passed in that program where you're like, these are some things that shifted either in your career, because I know you made some pretty, while you were with us, you made some career decisions that were very exciting. And then also just from that work-life balance piece, like what other sorts of, maybe examples you could give everyone to understand what you gained in that process?
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that I definitely picked up along the way in self-exploration is the unequivocal determination that I'm a perfectionist. Mm-hmm. So I think, I always knew about myself that I'm pretty hard on myself. I hold myself to a standard that, my parents even have told me, like, other people don't even hold you to that standard. You hold yourself to that standard. So that was a really, really important part of the process, and kind of understanding where some of that came from in my past. to know that about myself, which helped me think in situations where I feel like, okay, this is my perfectionist script talking to me. And at least being able to, even though it may not change the fact that the thoughts are happening, at least I can kind of understand, okay, this is not everybody would be thinking this in this situation. You're thinking this because of this. And you don't always have to be perfect all the time. It's also helped me think about other people around me, like my boss and teammates and family members and people who I also can see some of the same scripts in them, or maybe even, you know, different issues that they're dealing with, and have some empathy. Doesn't make me have to like the way they act, but it helps me have some empathy to the way that they're acting, because maybe they have some of the same tendencies I do. And it helps put some things in perspective, and helps me not take certain things as personally maybe as I have in the past. So if I see someone else like, oh, that person, yeah, they're totally a perfectionist, I can see exactly why they're doing that. It's more about them. So like that, you know, nasty email they sent is really more about them than me. So I can sort of put that in its place. So what it's enabled me to do is I've had an easier time, I would say, sort of taking things in stride. So getting emails from people, or difficult conversations at work, or office peanut gallery comments and things like that, I've been able to sort of like pull back from them a little bit, put them in perspective, and kind of come up with a plan for how to deal with it, instead of stewing on it for hours and hours and hours, and assuming like, oh, it's my fault, I must have done something wrong, I'm stupid, I'm, you know, and kind of that downward spiral of thinking.
Yeah, no, and I so appreciate you being so honest about that, because I think a lot of women, we all, and you know, as you learned in the program, there's these different scripts, whether it's perfectionist or achiever or nurturer or worrier, and these different things. And what happens is that interferes then with work-life balance, because we've either burnt up a lot of fuel at the office doing, you know, retorting to these emails or worrying about these emails, when we could have just been doing other things that were productive and got our work done. Or we're bringing it home with us. And so even though the kids are bouncing up and down, or our husband's like, hey, honey, let's, you know, watch a movie, we're thinking about the email. We're thinking about what we should retort to that. Or, you know, it uses up willpower. You know, it also, I think, drains us. I know a lot of the women that we work with, they come home at night and they just hit the couch, because it's just this self-talk that's going on in our head sometimes is just exhausting, versus just like moving past it and just going, okay, that's someone else's deal. And we know it intellectually, but it's different between knowing it and feeling it, right? And being able to actually let go. So
yeah, I've also realized that I definitely have a tendency, and my husband points this out to me a lot, like I need to have everything perfect before I can really enjoy anything. So that hits, you know, that is a time sucker when it comes to like, you know, I was finding myself like, I'd pull my computer out every night after we put the kids to bed, because I knew like, oh my gosh, there's like 30 emails, you know, there's all the emails I didn't check during the day. And then there's all the emails that people have sent between 5 and 7. And maybe my boss sent an email, and I just like, I can't stand thinking that those are all just sitting in there waiting for me tomorrow. So I have to clean them out. And then once I clean them out, then we can watch a movie or whatever. And it just like, so I became very aware of that, and which is great, because what would happen is like, I would tell my husband like, oh, I'm just going to check these few things. All of a sudden it's like 10 o'clock.
And he's gone to bed.
Like, whatever. He's like, I'm going to bed, or like, I'm going to go do my own thing, because you're clearly not going to be done for an hour. Which is just like really not fair, which basically just tells him every night that this is more important than you, which is, you know, not the message I want to send. So I try to get really disciplined about, you know, maybe sometimes at night I have to pull my computer out, because maybe my husband's a teacher and maybe he has to work on a lesson plan. So we both have to do our stuff, and that's fine. Or there's an emergency or something urgent, but not every night. So I definitely have made that change where I'm not doing that every night, because it's not fair to anybody. It's not fair to me either, because then there's literally no downtime. Just work and putting the kids to bed, and then work, and then going to sleep and getting up and working again, which is not very fulfilling.
That is not, and that's not the quality of life that you want, certainly.
Yeah.
What about some things like, I remember at one point you had sort of this we share a lot of celebrations and sort of these small moments along the way in the program, because really when we think about the good life, when we think about a fulfilling life, it is full of small moments. It's those small moments that we're missing so often because we're so busy working, putting the kids to bed and all that. And I remember you sharing, like, you had a business trip or something, and, you know, with this heightened awareness of what was really important to you, and some of the choices you have, you know, in your career, that a lot of times in women, we don't feel like we have. You were doing something like you're getting ready to go out of town, and instead of like packing your suitcase or something like that, which normally would have taken away from family time, you went out and played, went and had fun with the kids on a Sunday, and didn't worry about the fact that you were like inconvenienced your colleagues or something. So can you tell us what that was about?
Yeah. Small thing, but again, like, you know, I'm kind of a pleaser, so it's hard for me to put what I want first, generally speaking, which was something else that I've been working on. Yay. So, yeah, I had to travel like on I don't know what day it was, on a Monday, maybe a Monday. And instead I just made the decision, like, I don't care who I'm traveling. I was traveling with a bunch of colleagues, and I was like, I'm pretty sure they're all going to just carry their bags on. They're going to do the 311, right? And they're going to carry their bags on. And I'm literally going to be that person who's like, sorry guys, you got to come to the baggage claim with me. Which everybody makes a big stink about. And like, I really don't have time for that right now. I'd rather go, you know, play with my kids and hang out and be able to just throw my hairspray in my bag and not have to worry about tracking down a travel size hairspray and all the other stuff that goes with it. So, and it did, like, the next morning played out exactly as I thought it would, where, you know, you get the little, like, you checked your bag? What are you, oh my gosh. And I had decided that I was not going to say, I'm sorry.
Awesome.
And I didn't. I was like, yep, yeah, I did. Thanks for coming to the baggage claim with me. And that was it. I didn't make any excuses. I didn't say I'm sorry. It's just like, yep, that's what I did.
That's what I did, because my kids were more important last night. Thank you. Oh, I love it. Okay. So what are some of the outcomes for you now that you've been through the program? Because I know at one point you said, wow, I'm so glad I'm in the program, because I have this opportunity to be bouncing things off of people who don't have a vested interest in the decisions I make, in the sense of, you know, they're not colleagues, they're not people who, you know, it's not family, nobody needs anything from you. And so it's always nice to have that external group where you can kind of just be who you need to be and make those decisions. So what were some of the decisions that you were able to make? Because I know you certainly made some career shifts and things that you were, you know, kind of muddied about. And then once you came in, you got some clarity on that.
Yeah, it was huge to have that external group, as you said, that, like, you hit it, the nail on the head, that nobody needed anything from me, which is rare in all of our lives, right? Everybody that you see all day long has some vested interest in something. You know, even I found, like, my closest friend and confidant at work, they're still, you know, we're still in the same ecosystem. So there's still all the politics that play into anything we talk about. So that was really helpful, but I think I kind of went into the program thinking, like, gosh, I might need to make, like, I'm not really sure I know what I want to do, but I was definitely in this sort of career crossroads, feeling like what I did know about myself was that I'm accomplished enough, and I am an asset enough to somebody, and I owe it to myself to, well, no matter what change I make, to really, like, take the time to think through, like, what is the next step for me? Like, I'm not just looking for another job. I feel like jobs are kind of a dime a dozen in a way. I wanted it to be like, this is my end game. And everything I do is going to be intentional to get there. Because I feel like I haven't necessarily had to be that intentional. I think I've been fortunate, actually, to not have been that intentional, and that opportunities have come my way, or one thing's kind of led to another. And maybe I got a little sloppy about, you know, not being intentional. So I figured, gosh, you know, before another 15 years goes by, I really want to think about, like, what do I want to do next? Not just, like, when Joe Blow comes to me and says he's got a great job, then I think it's the next thing I should do. So I knew that that's kind of what I wanted to think. And what I didn't expect, though, is during the course of the coaching program, where we were exploring a lot of really different things, like staying at my current company and doing something different, or staying at my current company and creating some sort of, you know, different work-life balance with my boss, maybe, or maybe going to a smaller company or doing something totally different. What I didn't necessarily expect was that during the coaching, I would have the opportunity to actually make a career decision related to the fact that we're in the process of buying another company. And with it came a few different options for me. Mm-hmm. So I was actually offered a position a few months ago that was, I would say was a big job, a really big job, leading a new commercial division, and a great job. And probably the job that certainly everybody was like, oh yeah, she'll definitely say yes. You know, like it sort of undoubtedly like, yeah, she's definitely going to want this job. And not that I didn't want that job, but like the panic I felt when I was offered that job told me that I like really knew that it was not the right thing for me. Mm-hmm. And I started to think about, instead of just having that panic, like, oh my gosh, like I either have to take this job or leave. Like, that's it. Those are my options. Mm-hmm. I started to think about, okay, well, there's that job, but I also know there's going to be this other job. And so I actually proposed that other job to my boss, which I think totally shocked him. Because first of all, he was like, well, gosh, well, you know, I think this job that I offer you would be really the best job for you. And I appreciated that, but I was sort of thinking, well, based on this coaching program, I'm not sure you know what I'm thinking is best for me. Maybe just from a career perspective, maybe, but not from a life perspective. Mm-hmm. So I actually had to convince him pretty hard about this other job, which seems on the outside certainly seems like much more of a deviation to people, an unexpected path. Right. I'm sure it probably has some people wondering. I've gotten a lot of questions about it. Yep. But you've also helped me sort of come up with, you know, how do you position that in people's minds? And so I actually feel when I get that question, I'm actually really excited for that question now about like, well, gosh, you're going to be doing that. That's different. Mm-hmm. And then I kind of tell them why. Well, here's why I'm excited about it and why I think it's going to be really cool. And usually by the end of the conversation, people are like, I'm kind of jealous. Like, oh yeah, okay, now I get it. So, it's been really fun for me, actually. And I am really proud of myself because I feel like 1 or 2 years ago, I might have felt like I had to take the first job I was offered. Yeah. And certainly, you know, and I even told my boss, like, my resume wants this job, my ego wants this job. Everything in me is sort of, you know, saying like, you know, this would be a good job for me. I would learn a lot, but I just think that this other job is the right thing for me right now.
Yep. I love it. That's a huge success. That's such a huge success. And,
yeah,
you know, we do feel so compelled or propelled to kind of keep going in the direction that we're going. And everyone else expects us to too, because that bigger job that you were being offered was the next logical, like perfect on paper opportunity for you. Right. And so your boss was sort of taken aback and going, well, why would you not want this one? Mm-hmm. But what was great, and I think one of the things that you really applied yourself so well in the program, is learning that life doesn't have to be completely linear like your job had been up until then, and that you can duck and weave and you can create other opportunities for yourself within your company. Because I think that sense of, you know, if I don't do this, I'm going to have to leave, or I've just blown up my career, keeps us in fear, and it keeps us moving ahead. Like, we say yes, even though we're like, oh my gosh, I don't know if that's what I really want. And then we try to figure it out later. And you found something that you're jazzed about. It's creative. It's giving you new opportunities. And it may not make the most perfect sense to everyone else on the outside looking in immediately, but then once you sort of position it, you know, mm-hmm. as according to how it's really going to help you and why you're so passionate about it, like you said, everyone else is like jealous. And so I think seeing those possibilities, we don't see those possibilities until you go through something like this, where you do have that coaching experience where you can be third party, have someone help you see things that a lot of times are in front of us, but we dismiss maybe too easily, right? Like, oh, I couldn't do that. You know, what would everybody think if I did that? What would I think if I did that? Is that right for me? And trying to get that clarity. So that's exciting. I'm really happy for you. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. So any last like wrap up type of words, and you've been so kind to come and share all this information. Like, Anything else that you think is just sort of a great, lesson that you learned, or something that you'd want to share with another woman who is, possibly in your shoes? They're at a career crossroad. They're wondering, what's the next best step for me? And especially in light of wanting work-life balance. Yes, I want to enjoy a really impactful career, but I also want to make sure that career doesn't own my life. I want to be able to still enjoy my life.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what you said about life is not linear is like that. I definitely learned that throughout the coaching. That was a really important thing for me to learn, because I think I didn't not believe that. The idea of like new possibilities and opportunities has always sort of intrigued me, but I guess I tended to maybe think like, oh, that's sort of for other people. Like I'm kind of on this like ladder that I'm not sure how to get off of.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like at the top. If I'm at the top of this one ladder, like I'm not sure I want to be on this ladder anymore. How do I get on the ladder next door? So I think, I certainly learned how to think about like, there are a lot of ladders out there, and you can always sort of readjust and, find the next right ladder. And then I think too, I've always had a really hard time putting things in perspective. And when I've talked to, even friends who are like, oh, what do you want to do? What do you want to do in the next 1 to 3 years? And I haven't been able to really answer that question. That that was one of the reasons why I did this program too, is like, gosh, if I can't answer that question, like I'm doing myself a huge disservice. So I think trying to get that question answered, but also like learning that just because I'm doing this next thing, it doesn't mean that I'm doing it forever. Right. So like have the goal in mind. We've even talked about having a bridge strategy. Maybe this next new thing I'm doing is I'm going to love it and I'm going to do it for the next 20 years.
Yep.
That'd be a nice surprise. Maybe it's something that is going to bridge me to something else, because I haven't exactly figured out what that next thing is. But whatever it is, at least I know that it's the right step towards whatever that next thing is. And it's the more appropriate step for me than my other option was, or staying, where I am right now, is. So I feel like I've moved toward the right thing. And I've also learned that it's not, life isn't a destination. It's, it's meandering, and every day's a new day. So, and anything can change in any given day. So I think, I've learned to have a little bit more flexibility, and know that I'm never locked into something. It's always within my capability to change it and change the path.
Yes. And that is freedom, true freedom. Thank you for saying that. I'm so happy. And that's a big piece of what we want everyone to walk away with, is that our career and our life is much more in our control, I think, than we think. A lot of times we're so worried about how do we need to position this and position that and make it all work. And that's the whole point, is that you truly can redefine success on your terms. And I think that's exactly what you've done for you and your family, which is super exciting. So thank you for sharing that.
Sure. You're welcome.
Awesome. Well, great. Well, Lindsey, thanks again for being here. Thanks for sharing your story. I know it's going to really help other women who are facing similar career crossroads, and know that they can get clarity. They can get an action plan together, and through some self-exploration and some career development, find a path that's going to be just right for them. So I appreciate you being so willing to share, and you've been awesome to work with. And I look forward to staying in touch in our alumni group. So thanks again for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks. Likewise.